Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another great guest on. Now, when it comes down to entrepreneurship, there are so many different things that you have to think through, and that journey can be very interesting. Now, when you go from being just a solo entrepreneur to now you want to build out your business, an element of that is going to be managing the people, the HR side of it, and there's a whole lot that you got to think about there. So, I am very excited about having Skye Mercer on because that's exactly what she does. I mean, on that HR consulting, or as we are going to make this a new thing, fractional HR professionals. So, welcome to the show, Skye.
Thank you for having me, Terrell. It's awesome to be here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Now, before we jump into the details of your business, can you tell us a little bit about your background before starting this business?
Yeah, so I am a certified HR consultant, and I'm originally from the Pacific Northwest, but I'm based out of Iowa here. And I work with small businesses, nonprofits, and local governments all over the US to really help them to create compliant and drama free workplaces. And so I specialize in helping small business owners really transform from confusion to clarity with really simplified, sustainable systems for people practices. And it's something I've always done. I've done it for almost 20 years. I love the people side of business, and I'm very passionate about what I do.
Awesome. And I think that's a very interesting part of the business that not a lot of small business owners are really prepared to actually deal with, or whether it's the emotional side, whether it's the operational side. From your experience with working with, I mean, now that's my opinion, a finance person speaking. So, let's just ask the expert. From your experience, do you find that small businesses are really prepared for what the HR side of the business entails?
No, they're not. However, they don't need to be. Just like they don't need to be a fractional CFO or a CPA, that's where you come in. They can rely on outside support. And usually I see business owners start to reach out to me at about the 10 employee mark. They've already got the CPA in place. And then that next logical step, usually because the CPA is saying, hey, that's outside of my area of expertise. Can you call an HR person? Then they'll bring the HR person on. So, I mean, that's my whole goal is really, I want business owners to be able to get back to the work they love doing, the work that they're good at doing, the work they're passionate about doing, helping clients. And so if I can help them offload the overwhelm of HR and set up these sustainable systems so they can get back to doing that, then I know I've done my job.
Awesome. Now, it's always that interesting part, for yourself of, being a entrepreneur and building out your own business where you go from, you were working in the field to now you want to build a business, around that skill set that you develop. How was that process for you of switching from working in it to now I want to build a business that works in that field?
I love this question. And you and I talked about it a while back when we met each other. Really, I tell people, I think it's awesome that I had the background in HR, I had the hands-on experience, anything from working in a Fortune 500 company nationally to I was the head of HR for a 100-person nonprofit. So I had really, really diverse experience that I think really helps me with my clients. But the thing that I did not account for into going into business for myself is how much of a personal development journey it would be. So becoming an entrepreneur brings up all your stuff. You have confidence around getting paid. Well, guess what? You're going to have to deal with pricing. You're going to have to deal with how to get paid. You have, confidence issues around sales. Guess what? You're going to have to learn how to sell. So there's all these things that I think come along with being a business owner that are really exciting. I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. So it's been a fun journey, but it's also been more of a personal development journey than I had anticipated.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, I guess in navigating kind of that part of the journey, were there things that kind of helped you make those, leaps or steps forward?
Yeah, I'm a big believer, and I talk about this in my leadership training as well. I'm a huge believer in peer support. So it's awesome to have friends and family that are supportive of my business, but end of the day, only another business owner is going to understand what it's like to go through being a business owner. And so I really relied on my peer network of other business owners. I watched what they were doing, I connected with them. And then now, most recently, I belong to a mastermind of other HR business owners that has just really helped me to not feel alone. And, like even today, I'm meeting up with another business owner to do virtual co-working. So we're going to, get some stuff done online. So that's my biggest tip, is getting that peer support from your peers.
Awesome. Awesome. So now, as you started to think about, starting your business, how did you come to really identifying, okay, all right, what is my business going to do? Because it seems like there's a wide range of things you can do in the HR space. How did you start to really get comfortable with, hey, you know what, this is going to, like, I can do those things, but this is my niche?
Yeah. So I subscribe to the philosophy action brings clarity. I just dove in and did everything. I was like, I will do all things HR. And to a large extent, I still do. I'm very much a generalist. So if a small business owner needs help with medical accommodation for an employee versus a handbook versus compensation versus benefits, I still have all that knowledge. But in terms of putting my services out there, I was like, free for all. And so I learned by doing and by receiving some training, in how to productize my services. And I got clear through acting, through working with clients on what was needed for the smaller organizations that I work with, because I work with nonprofits and local governments too. But they really, with the small businesses that I work with, I learned quickly that they need at least like a monthly services package where they keep me on retainer, for lack of a better word, for a 6-month period of time to really help them transform, and transform from that space of like, we don't have a handbook, here's kind of our policy, yeah, we don't really have a pay practice, no, we're not really doing that with benefits, to like 6 months later where we have an onboarding program, a hiring program, we have a handbook in place with policies, we have training for supervisors, we have all kinds of compliance components in place. So I really learned by doing, this is what the small business owner needs, and then here's how we can get there. And then I ended up just launching a new website in January, and I subscribe to the philosophy that I'm putting it all out there. My pricing's out there, the options that I offer are out there, and I found that clarity, around what I offer is really helpful to buyers.
Mhm. Gotcha. Now, how did you get comfortable with, I guess, being able to communicate that clearly? Because what I find is a lot of people, especially that start a business in a service-oriented space, with they know what they do, and if they had the chance to work with the client, they could demonstrate it. But it's like a client that you haven't worked with. How do you like communicate that well, whether it's on your website, or how did you get comfortable with that?
I hired people. So this is one of the biggest faults of, I'd say, leaders, and I'm guilty of it too when I was leading teams. We don't rely on our resources. And so I had to push myself, and sometimes I had to be told from the outside, Skye, you need to rely on your resources. So I hired someone, her name's Lindsay Johnson with Verity & Co. And she helped me through, I wanted to learn how to do branding messaging, because I know that as an entrepreneur, I'm going to need that in the future and want to be able to speak to my values. So I hired her to coach me and to review my scripts and verbiage. And then we put that online. And then I also worked with Nikki Roush of the Sales Maven Society. I'm a Sales Maven Society member, and really like learned from her, okay, what do I say? How do I communicate my value? What do I say during these conversations? Because as an in-house professional, HR person, I'm not selling my services. People are coming to me because I'm the HR person, so I can help them. Whereas I had to learn to like how to speak to my value, like what you're saying. And so I hired the experts to help me.
Okay, awesome. I think that that is amazing because I do think sometimes that, when you're used to working in your field for another company, like most of the time you don't go get, the marketing department to help you figure out how to communicate what you do. So it's like a new skill that you have to learn.
Totally. Yeah. And now, like, I think there's still kind of this philosophy that I don't agree with recruiters, where they're like, oh, it's a red flag if somebody owned their own business. Now that I've owned my own business, I think any company would do right by hiring a business owner, because they're going to know, and specifically for HR, it's a customer service game. You're providing customer service to your customers who are in the same building oftentimes as you. And so having that ability to communicate value of using the service actually helps companies toward their compliance goals. So I mean, it's been a journey, but I think that it's been a skill set I needed to learn for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I think in being I'm curious as to getting your thoughts on this. So, being a business owner myself, I think what it has done is it opened me up to learning about pretty much the aspects of running a business, kind of a whole new level of discipline and execution that I didn't get or that I didn't have to operate at that level when I was just an employee, to where I feel like it's really allowed me to sharpen some of those skills that would be very helpful if I wanted to go back to, being in a career. I mean, that's been kind of my perspective. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And the key thing too is it's dynamic, it's a journey, it's not static. This next year, this last year I had to learn basic sales and productizing services. This next year I'm going to have to learn how to grow smart. I'm going to have to learn how to possibly subcontract services. I'm going to have to learn like a whole new set. And so you're right. I agree with you totally, Terrell. Like, it's basically that you're just continuing to evolve, continuing to learn. I often tell people I have an MBA from Arizona State University, and I love Arizona State University. It taught me a lot, but it didn't teach me anything on how to do accounting, invoicing, budgeting, sales, marketing, sustainable growth, any of those things. And so I had to learn that on my own. And I definitely think that would be valuable to, go back to an employer. I hope I never have to. I don't want to go back to. I love working for myself. I love the creativity and, control over creativity that I have. And, I just find that really lights me up.
Awesome, awesome. So now, when it comes down to, like I said, the services that you provide, you know, what has been kind of the experience or the feedback that you've heard from customers for clients that you've worked with?
Yeah, I just got off a call with a client that was like, I was talking to this person about, okay, so we've been working together 6 months. How have you, like, how are you able to delegate more now? Because this person was talking about how they've kind of transitioned from an entrepreneur to a CEO, and they have a number of employees. And I was like, how have you been able to do that? And she's like, well, this, and working with you. And I was like, oh, yeah, because, we put into place policies, we put into place systems, we put into place easy to follow checklists, for what needs to be completed for a new hire, what needs to be completed for, I'm a big toolkit fan. So, OSHA toolkit, or we might have a COBRA toolkit, ADA toolkit, FMLA toolkit, so that it's just, I want to work myself out of a job. I want to basically work with them intensely and then offload into an on-call basis, because they really have that system set up internally. So the feedback I get is that they're able to delegate, they're able to stop doing the day-to-day and of second guessing themselves about HR things. It's kind of a scary world when it comes to compliance. And so, they're able to kind of step away from that and have something to point to that's in writing, that's like, oh, this is how I do that. Oh, okay, Skye and I walked through that. I know how to do that. So I think it gives them more time. I think it saves the business owners I work with, it saves them money. It definitely reduces their risk of state and federal compliance issues. And I actively get to see those results when I work with my clients.
Awesome. Awesome. So now how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in doing business with you?
Yeah, I would love for them to reach out. So my website is skyehrconsulting.com. It's Skye with an E, so SKYEHR consulting.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Skye Mercer, and I'm on Facebook at Skye HR Consulting. I'd love it if they reached out. My phone number, email, everything's on my website. I host complimentary HR discovery calls so we can really hone into what the business owner is looking for or business leader is looking for and how I might be a resource to them. And that's complimentary. And I'd love to meet with some of the folks that listen to this call.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, before we wrap up, one of the last questions I like to ask every guest that comes on is when you think about, your journey of where you've been and you think about where you are, what's two pieces of advice you would share with other business owners?
Oh, that's such a good question. Okay, so the one I would reiterate, get support. Rely on your resources. You are not alone. Even though it feels lonely as a business owner, it feels lonely. I always say leadership is lonely, business ownership is extra lonely. So definitely get your supports in place so you don't feel lonely. And then, the other piece I would say is just like celebrate your wins. I was just talking to someone about brainstorming accomplishments from this last year because I put a lot into place for my business, new accounting system, new invoicing, like all these, that are kind of, they're big deals when you're going through them, new website. And so really taking a moment to say, I did this, like I deserve to celebrate, and maybe I'll take the day off because guess what? I'm my boss and I can do that. So celebrate your wins would be my second.
Awesome. Well, Skye, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you. I've really enjoyed the conversation. And I definitely think what you're doing is phenomenal for helping businesses because if you don't get the HR piece right in your business, it can have drastic effects. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Terrell. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.